Hey everybody, Leapalot here. This video has been a long time in the making, but I'm finally back with another 100 days of Stardew Valley's 1.6 update. If you didn't see the last one, there's a card on the screen now, but if you want to jump right in, here's what I accomplished. I completed the community center, caught every fish, upgraded all my tools to Iridium, unlocked Ginger Island, made it to Mr. Key's Walnut Room, and managed to reach 42% perfection. Not bad. I imagine you can probably guess what my goal is for this video. I want to reach perfection before the end of year 2, something that wasn't possible before the changes in 1.6. There's a lot to cover, so let's get started. Things didn't just stop because I had reached 100 days. On day 101, I had a letter from the Joja Special Services Division with a perfect solution to help me with my goals. Interesting. It was a great luck day, and I really wanted to start the second 100 days off with a bang. I started by dropping off a birthday gift for the wizard, then stopped over at Ginger Island, where I enchanted my fishing rod for efficient shoot. My second attempt was auto hook, still not quite what I was looking for. Third time's a charm though, and I picked up preserving. You might see where we're going with this. I also enchanted my hammer here and got artful, which was exactly what I wanted. Neat. After that, I stopped by the Walnut Room and picked up the Extended Family Quest, as well as some key seasoning before heading home and cooking 3 Gold Star Seafoam Pudding. That's right, it's time to fish. It was about 1:50 by the time I fished up my first Legend 2, which I immediately turned into 10 targeted bait. With the preserving enchantment, there's a 50% chance that my bait and or tackle won't be consumed. And that's really handy for rare bait like this targeted bait. And it paid off, albeit slowly, as I continued to pull in more Legend 2s throughout the day. I didn't end up making more targeted bait though. Instead I used some wild bait when I ran out, and I managed to pull in a double stack at about 9 p.m. and then immediately after at 9:10. By the time I decided to head home, I had 6 smoked Legend 2s in my inventory and another 4 ready to be processed. I stopped by the night market next, picking up some fancy art for the house, and I headed out. I sold 9 smoked Legend 2s today, saving 1 to possibly make bait later, and I made about 283,000 gold on them. I would say that's a pretty good showing on day 101. On day 102, I actually didn't continue fishing at the mountain lake, despite the nice little chunk of change I made yesterday. Instead, I completed my chores around the farm, then went ahead and performed some ritual sacrifice of a creepy doll to get a faraway stone from the lava pool at floor 100 of the mines. I cracked some geodes today, like a lot of geodes, and made some donations to the museum before visiting Robin to get another shed started down on the fish pond island. And speaking of islands, I stopped by Ginger Island to harvest some starfruit and wheat and replant the area with more starfruit. Cracking the mussel rocks got me another walnut, and I continued gathering ginger since I really wanted to complete that quest for Caroline. I met with Fizz, the guy who sent me the letter from Joja yesterday, and learned that I could buy vouchers for perfection. Every 500,000 gold is worth 1 point. I can't really afford that, but I'm interested in planning some sort of, kind of Joja perfection roadmap in the future. Speaking of roadmaps, planning, and pure perfection, this video is sponsored by Gameloft and their game Disney Dreamlight Valley. If you're a fan of the channel, you might already know that I love games that are extremely chill and cozy, but with potential for chaos and or optimization lying right below the surface. Disney Dreamlight Valley is exactly that kind of game with incredible depth to it, from robust quest systems to decoration and landscaping that I haven't personally even scratched the surface on. It's got skills and mechanics like foraging, fishing, crafting, and more that I already knew I would love, but probably my favorite part about the system is that bringing along another character can help you potentially double your profit. You can get extra gems from mining, or extra crops from your fields, or even mysterious duplicate fish flopping into existence from the ether. Disney Dreamlight Valley has a ton of content with your favorite Disney and Pixar characters, and Gameloft is only picking up speed. There have already been over a dozen huge updates adding characters, biomes, quests, and even major features like multiplayer. Not to mention, more updates are on the way every few months. Follow my link in the description below to pick up a copy of Disney Dreamlight Valley and join the magic yourself. Thanks again to Gameloft for sponsoring today's video. With day 103 being the final day for the Extended Family Quest, and with plenty of recipes left for me in the Walnut Room, I decided I should probably go ahead and fish up the rest of the family. Before that, though, I dropped off the faraway stone at the wizard's house to pick up a Meowmere, I think. It's a little crossover item from Terraria. I'll be honest, I have no idea what that is. Sorry. Then it was down to business. The Glacierfish Jr. was first on my list, and I pulled it in on my first attempt, which I was pretty happy with. Next was down to the sewer, where I bought an iridium sprinkler since I have no batteries right now, before fishing up the radioactive carp. The hardest part about this guy was actually trying to find space for him in my inventory. Miss Angler was up next, and the bookseller was here today with possibly the most important item of the entire run, the Queen of Sauce cookbook. Reading that unlocked all the recipes that you normally have to watch the show for, which meant I wouldn't have to wait for the end of year 2 to unlock them. But then it was time to snag the crimson fish, which was actually the first fish to bite the hook down at the ocean. Easy every time. That's 20 more gems for me. I decided there was no time to wait for the amount of iridium sprinklers I would need to fill out Ginger Island, so I brought over a bunch of quality ones instead and started tilling out spots and placing fertilizer. But, you might notice, I didn't actually plant any crops. Day 104 was Evelyn's birthday, which meant I had to drop off a gold quality fairy rose for her, of course. That also immediately made us close enough that she taught me her cookies recipe. I dropped off a couple of items for the missing bundle after that, though I would soon forget all about that for a long time. Then I crafted some monster musk and headed into the mines to finish up one of Clint's monster extermination quests for the Geode Crusher. I found my first trinket today, a fairy companion that would float around and heal me during combat. That's really cool, but it was only level 1, so it wasn't too crazy. Still, if I could be careful, that would save me a lot of food over a few trips. I also found a basilisk paw later that would prevent me from getting status effects, but I dumped it right away and kept the fairy for now. I didn't quite reach my monster slaying goal today, and check out where I passed out. How is this fair? I'm literally in my bed. Day 105 started with the normal farm chores, and I went ahead and sold my powder melons today, since I was pretty sure I'd made them all into seeds so far. I visited my raccoon friends who wanted dried powder melons, dang it, and crystal fruit jelly. Well, those should both be pretty doable, though I didn't want to reset my day just for the crops. I picked up a silo's worth of hay from Marnie, since we were getting pretty low, then crafted more musk and headed back into the mines to finish killing bats for Clint. With floor 47 being an infested floor, I easily wrapped that quest up, and I found a parrot egg down here too. This would give me another little follower who would occasionally provide just straight up cash for killing enemies. I'm sure there's some kind of cool combination here, but I'm not quite sure what yet. Maybe monster musk. After that, I headed to Ginger Island, where I finally realized I had forgotten to plant crops after tilling and fertilizing 128 tiles worth of farmland. That was a little frustrating, but I fixed it today before heading into the volcano to search for more walnuts, and I didn't find any. Day 106 started with a disaster. I tried like 4 times to get this stupid vertebrae, but it seemed like it was just doomed to fail. No matter how I approached the dig spot, it just fell into the water every time. Whatever. I did a round of starfruit kegging back at home, and even though I specifically wanted to avoid having like a quarry full of kegs like last time, I will be expanding my wine output to try and reach my money goals by the end of 200 days. I stopped by Ginger Island after that again and snagged a frog fossil by Leo's hut, which I was really excited about, until I realized I needed the bat still, not the frog. So into the volcano I went. I found some good resources, but no fossil. There were actually 2 months in between day 106 and 107, and I honestly wasn't sure if I was ever going to come back to this video. Long story short, take breaks and take care of yourselves. After my normal chores on the farm, I met Leo on Ginger Island and we talked about what it means to be a human, and to acknowledge that things are hard to accept, okay? Also, since I play so zoomed out, Leo didn't even leave the screen here, which I thought was funny. I spent more time in the volcano mine after that before heading home to give William a diamond, buy 300 cups of coffee, and then immediately make them into triple shot espresso. I should have just made coffee yesterday since it was a wine day, but I forgot. I snagged a bottle of silver wine from the basement on day 108 for the missing bundle, then continued to work on Caroline's ginger request all day. I really wanted the solar panel recipe she was offering, though by this point it was already almost spring, but whatever. I forgot, once again, to bring 10 diamonds to snag the book from the dwarf merchant, and I made a lot of headway on the ginger quest, killing tiger slimes to collect more, since I'd already exhausted the supply of tillable ones. But I wasn't quite there yet, so I headed home around 10 to do some cleanup and remind myself what those pesky raccoons wanted. Day 109 was the Feast of the Winter Star, so after picking up some forage around the mountain and clearing the quarry of all the ore I could see, I headed into town for the festivities. I chatted with all my neighbors, and William told me the story of the first star drop, probably. Then I handed over a duck feather to Elliot since he was my secret friend. Emily was my gift giver, and she got me a ruby. It's not the tea set, but you know what? That's a nice gift. That was it, though, so I headed to the desert to trade some jade for staircases, which I couldn't do because I mixed up Thursday and Sunday. I almost didn't even put this in the video because it's embarrassing, but I thought you deserved to know the truth. I picked up a portrait of Leah on day 110, and oh, wait a second. I completely missed her birthday on the 23rd. Oh my gosh. Let's look at this. She even told me it was going to be a special day and everything. Yikes. Well, nothing I can do now. I gave Clint a rabbit's foot for his birthday, Then headed to Ginger Island, where I managed to find a snake vertebrae in one of the mussel rocks. Excellent. And then I found another one in a dig spot like 2 minutes later. Okay. I kept hunting for ginger today around the farm map, and I turned in one of those vertebrae to complete the snake collection and get 3 more walnuts plus a mango tree sapling. I stopped up by the forge next, where I realized I had auto-sorted the rubies I'd brought for my hammer into the chest at the island farm, so after a quick trip back there, I infused my weapon 3 times, and then combined the burglar ring and iridium rings that I was wearing. And then yeah, back to ginger hunting. I managed to find the last journal scrap that I needed for a walnut today, and I even managed to remember my diamonds, so I was able to get the Diamond Hunter book, which lets you find diamonds even in random normal rocks. Neat. And with just a couple days left in the month, I managed to ship my 100 ginger for Caroline. Oh, and while I didn't ship them, I realized that I had picked up the Fragments of the Past quest tonight as well, so I loaded up my inventory with bone fragments to turn that in for tomorrow. I got the solar panel recipe from Caroline on day 111, but I only had enough ingredients for 5 panels. I went ahead and made them, but also started some quartz to get some more panels up and running soon, like a couple hours later soon. But then I was getting a little short on the other stuff, so I decided to just stick with 7 panels for now. I used my ticket from Caroline's quest to get a houseplant at the Lewis Gotcha, then used the ticket from Gunther's quest to get a mining book. Great. But there was tea coming up in the queue, so I wanted to make sure to keep plugging away. Then I stopped by Ginger Island, where I harvested a bunch of starfruit and reached a 4th level of mastery for my efforts. I expanded and replanted my field, dropped off the solar panels, built the very last walnut upgrade, the bridge in the volcano, and dug up the ostrich egg right outside, which I'd forgotten to do yesterday. Then I headed into the mines for a couple hours to bomb the crap out of the place in search of the mummified bat, which I found on just the 2nd floor. That's one more section of Ginger Island complete, and I now had the ostrich egg incubator recipe for my newly found and inexplicably fertilized egg. Let's not think too hard about it. Before heading off to bed tonight, I claimed foraging mastery at Grandpa's Cave. My Walnut Room quest for the week was the Dangerous Skull Cavern, so on day 112 I loaded up my slingshot, grabbed a bunch of stairs and bombs, and headed out. I love when I get this quest in the Walnut Room because I always have a ton of staircases laying around, so it's basically just free gems. I found a prismatic shard in a chest on floor 15, some seafoam pudding on floor 45, and then another prismatic shard on floor 46. I also got the secret note about the bus tunnel, which I still haven't done. Whoops. And on floor 100, I found a blue-green frog egg. I looked up what this little guy does, and apparently he just eats enemies, and that's pretty cool, but it doesn't count toward Protector of the Valley progress, so I will have to pass on him. I went a little further into the cavern and found another prismatic shard on floor 104, and I actually wrapped up my mummy slaying goal a little bit later that night, too. I'd call that a pretty good day. Day 113 was the first day of spring year 2. Leah had some spicy dialogue that morning before Kent stopped by to say hello, and Leah also apparently didn't want to meet him because she waited until he left to tell me to meet her in a forest for some arts and crafts. It was wine day again, so I made sure to do another batch of starfruit today, and then turned in my jelly and dehydrated powder melon for a raccoon journal, which makes it more likely that I find mixed seeds in weeds. That's awesome. I went ahead and planted some of the seeds that were already in my shed, but I also stopped into town where I donated a prismatic shard to the museum, showed Kent a picture of his old war buddy, and bought even more seeds to plant from Pierre. I gave the tomato salt I'd gotten from Kent to Gus, who gave me a lovely rose, which I brought to Sandy, completely forgetting to buy rhubarb seeds while I was there. I spent most of the rest of my day planting my crops and cleaning up the debris that a new year brings. I decided that I wanted to go all in on bunnies on day 114, so I sold off some of my coop animals to make space for them. I really want to load up on rabbit's feet since friendship is such a big part of perfection. I also continued the Pirate's Wife quest today, with a brief interruption to paint my very first masterpiece portrait. And I actually didn't realize that Birdie wouldn't be outside because it was raining on Ginger Island, so I guess that'll just have to wait. I did get a bunch more seeds in the ground today though, and I finally picked up the horse flute. This thing is a game changer. I harvested my greenhouse on day 115 and prepared the rest of the spaces for more starfruit, then added rabbits named Potatoes, Molasses, George, and Washington to my farm. Grow up quick, you lost little frogs. After that, I replenished my stock of starfruit seeds, replanted my greenhouse, ignored Sam doing a kickflip, and handed out cheese to hungry beachgoers. I also expanded my Ginger Island farm and turned in the Pirate's Wife quest for 5 more golden walnuts, which I used to buy a couple recipes from the Walnut Room. While I was there, I snagged the Skull Cavern Invasion quest since I already knew that's one of my favorites, and continued to work on my Monster Slayer goals, completing the slime goal that night. I haven't been showing this every day since it's pretty repetitive, but I'm loading my dehydrators with either starfruit or the mushrooms and forage I find around the map. Today, day 116, I also refilled the preserves jars with pumpkins, which I also do every couple of days. I hadn't actually done the math quite yet, but I'll give you a spoiler if you promise not to tell anyone. I'm gonna run into some money problems with so few processing machines. I turned in all the gems Emily would need for her crystal healing ceremony that afternoon and gave Kent a rabbit's foot for his birthday before trading a Lewis ticket for a cup of tea, which I also gave to Kent. That gave me over 3 hearts worth of friendship, catapulting Kent up my friends list. The rest of the day was pretty slow though, other than forging my slime charmer and crab shell rings at the forge and putting this cow decal up on the wall of my main shed. I sold Penny the pig on day 117 because I needed some room for my ostrich to hatch, and I was starting to feel weird about having a pig with the same name as a villager. After that, I went all in on gifting my neighbors cheese and mayo. Everybody loves creamy farm products, even William. I also made sure to buy and plant the rest of the fruit trees that I was missing in my greenhouse today, before spending the rest of the afternoon and evening working on the Monster Slayer goals I had left. Primarily, I'm focusing on the Void Spirits goal here. On day 118, an ostrich hatched in my barn. I was wholly unprepared for this, so I just named her Oscar for no reason and continued about my business. And my business today was the Skull Cavern. It was a very good luck day, so I loaded up with some food, my slingshot, and some bombs and headed to the desert. I still had one more day for the invasion quest, so I didn't bring any staircases, which was kind of dumb in retrospect, but I did have a pretty good day nonetheless. I found a magic turban on floor 40, which is pretty much completely useless to me, but way more importantly, I found a galaxy soul on level 43. Just a couple more of those and I'll be able to upgrade my hammer. Immediately after that, I encountered a dino floor, which is awesome because I was able to wrap up my Pepper Rex goal right then and there. Floor 51 was a treasure floor with a prismatic shard, and even though I almost died here, I managed to get 2 more galaxy souls from a slime on floor 52. Praise be to the burglar ring. Floor 72 was kind of a dud with 15 cherry bombs, but I actually found another 2 galaxy souls on floor 90. I don't really need to upgrade 2 weapons, but I almost could. And finally, at 11:10 p.m., I made my way to floor 100 where Mr. Key was waiting for me. I'd been here before, but this was the first time since I'd gotten the secret note, which meant I got to drink that good purple snake milkies. I was a little disappointed, but not surprised, that there was no dialogue for meeting Mr. Key at floor 100 of the Dangerous Mines without using staircase strats. Just saying, Concerned Ape, it's gotta be worth something, right? That was it for day 118, though. Not bad, huh? I continued loading up my fridges on day 119, which also meant buying both seeds and staples from Pierre's. And I also finally remembered that I hadn't planted any rhubarb, so I visited Sandy to grab a stack of those seeds as well. More importantly though, my banana tree on Ginger Island was finally producing, which meant I could turn in one of those for 3 more golden walnuts. I want to say that's the last of them, but I didn't take very good notes around this time, so I'm actually not really sure. I worked on my Magma Sprite eradication goal today and got an achievement called Infinite Power when I upgraded my Galaxy Hammer to the Infinity Gavel. My gifting continued paying off on day 120 as the recipes were rolling in. Also, George mailed me some rocks. Thanks. It was an oak resin day, which meant it was also going to be a wine day later, but first I had to hand out even more gifts to my neighbors, and then harvest and replant the starfruit on Ginger Island. I attempted to scare Leo into jumping off a cliff, and then I made a trip into the volcano, where I reached a new mastery level and completed the Monster Slayer goal for Magma Sprites. After all that fun stuff, though, I crafted 42 kegs and expanded my wine production in the wine shed, since I could already foresee a problem with my income levels. A rainy day on day 121 meant it was time to do a little bit of fishing, since I had a quest from Demetrius to fish up 20 riverfish. It just doesn't feel quite the same as it did that first spring, though, especially since I have so many chores to do that the actual fishing time is limited. And speaking of chores, I spent most of the rest of my day working on Monster Slayer goals in the mines. Honestly, it was a pretty slow day, but I capped it off by picking up Mining Mastery, my very last one. On day 122, I dropped off 5 eggs and a dehydrated moral with the raccoons, which expanded their shop and gave me a brand new hat. I didn't really like it though. Since it was Vincent's birthday, I gave him a grape I'd been storing in my shed for the past 3 months, and then I picked up 8 Omni Geodes from a Lewis ticket and almost got caught digging in the trash by Gus. Not today, Gus. I finally caved and bought a dresser from Robin, which didn't match any of my highly curated furniture, but it did help me clear out a lot of my storage. I learned that Junimos love raisins, which unfortunately won't be relevant on this farm, and I wandered through the Skull Cavern, killing serpents and generally being a menace. I dropped off some beans in the fridge on day 123, and at this point I was getting pretty close to wrapping up all the spring crops I needed for cooking recipes. Picked up a couple hundred hay from Marnie, as well as a book that lets me access her shop when she's not around. You might think this would protect my animals from starvation, but I actually completely forgot that this book even existed shortly after reading it, and all the way until I started editing this video. After that though, it was back to the Skull Cavern where I reset the first few floors for serpents today, and managed to kill enough by about 6 p.m. that I could take off for the day to go hunt around the normal mines, and then head to the Adventurers Guild. Gil tried to set me up on a date by giving me Marlin's number, but he also forked over the napalm ring, which is one of my absolute favorites in the game. Pop quiz for you, what's your favorite ring combo for late game Stardew Valley? I honestly struggle to pick 4 out, but I usually go with the Iridium Band, Burglars, Napalm, and Slime Charmers. That was it for my day though, other than killing more of Krobus's cousins. I spent the morning of day 124 harvesting some of the starfruit in my greenhouse and breaking into Sebastian's room to slap him in the face with a piece of wet seaweed. The bookseller was in town today, but I'd already picked up everything I needed, so after failing to give William a 3rd cheese this week, I headed to Ginger Island for more starfruit harvesting. The Iridium Scythe is easily my favorite tool at this point. It makes harvesting fields so convenient that I don't really even care that I can't have Junimo huts on Ginger Island. I chatted up Leah since she was on a beach vacation today, then unforged my slime and crab shell ring, gathered a few more cinder shards, and forged my napalm and slime charmers rings instead. I picked up the Keys Cuisine quest, then headed back to the mainland to hand out some gifts and buy almost 700 cups of coffee that I immediately turned into triple shot espresso to complete the quest. Yeah, I know, very lame. That night, Leah asked if we should have a baby, and after much deliberation, I agreed. Day 125 was the Egg Festival, and while I appreciate the dialogue that villagers have on Year 2, the only thing that really mattered to me was winning the egg hunt. I actually hadn't participated in the Year 2 version of the hunt before today, so I was a little concerned that I would lose to Abigail. But I managed to pick up 10 eggs just by following my normal route, and I was rewarded a prize ticket for my efforts. I stopped by Emily and Haley's house on day 126, where I found the ladies meditating and sleeping, and I dropped off a coconut for Haley's birthday, bringing us up to 8 hearts. My Lewis ticket from yesterday provided me 4 more kegs, which I plopped down in the keg shed, nearly completing my layout. Even though I just did a big Skull Cavern dive a week ago, I made sure to trade for more staircases in the desert today, and I gave William his customary piece of cheese as tribute for taking me to Ginger Island. I can't remember what I was looking for at the dig site, but I spent a while at Ginger Island, clearing things out and panning around with no success before heading back to the mines to work on my Slayer goals. Day 127 was a Monday, which you might have gathered by now is a very important day. I managed to collect 127 bottles, interesting, of starfruit wine from the keg shed, and replaced everything with even more now that I had filled the entire building. But today was important for another reason. It was my first day experiencing the Desert Festival. I hopped on the bus after all my chores and found this. This place is amazing. There are special vendors every day that sell things for calico eggs. Emily gives you free, albeit ugly, clothes. You can get a free cactus that doesn't appear to do anything. You can hit Elliot with a hammer. You can bet on animal races, go shopping at the desert and traveling merchants, and trade eggs for special prizes. You can also accidentally fail a quiz about cows and embarrass yourself on the internet, and you can get absolutely broken food buffs from this creepy guy in his little hands. I spent most of my day in the mines though, and I got some eggs from Gil, though he didn't seem very impressed. Day 128 was the second day of the Desert Festival, and today I wanted to go a little earlier. In fact, I got there before the festivities even started today, so I had to wander around handing out presents and talking to people until I could actually do anything. Turns out you can only get 1 free cactus, which is sad, but I made sure to finish the quiz correctly this time, and after giving gifts to more neighbors, I ordered some more food from this creepy guy and dove into the mines. I actually really like the statues in here. Random buffs, debuffs, and whatever really appeals to the roguelite enjoyer that I've slowly become over the past few years. Today's haul got me 200 eggs and a replica of Gil's hat, by the way. Not something I'll ever wear, but I can stuff it in the dresser and pretend I might dress up later. Day 129 was the final day of the Desert Festival, but before I could stop over at Calico Desert, I had a few chores to do. I made sure to tell Shane to pull himself up by his bootstraps, then I dropped off gifts with friends and visited Ginger Island, where I snagged the Keys Kindness quest. Which was dumb, but whatever. I built the Island Obelisk today, which means I basically have no more need for William, and then finally I was ready to wander around the desert, handing out love gifts to whoever I could find. But I was gifting so heavily already that I could hardly give anyone anything. I bought some shiny hair gel from Alex today, and spent the rest of my eggs on iron ore. I really liked the Desert Festival, and I'm excited to see what all the other vendors have in stock next time. Before bed, I crafted the statue of the Dwarven King, which I probably should have made before the festival started, to be honest. This will let me select between 2 random mining buffs each morning, which probably would have been super helpful while I was hunting for the eggs. On day 130, Shane came by to praise me for my sound philosophical advice, but I had no time for his praise since I needed to hand out a whole bunch of love gifts in the next several days if I wanted all my gems. More important than any of that, though, was that I really needed to squish a bunch of bugs today. You see, I'd picked up the Juicy Bugs quest from the board this week, and I absolutely could not afford to fail this quest since it provided a crafting recipe that I would need for perfection. So even though I had lots to do, I made sure to spend nearly 9 hours working on this quest so I didn't mess it up somehow. I handed out more gifts on day 131, and I joined Shane, Emily, and Clint as they filmed a commercial for Joja Blue. The prize was 10,000 gold, wow, which is about 1/7 of what I made overnight yesterday, so I really wanted to do what I could to help my poor neighbors rise up in the world. After that, I joined William in what I refer to as the squelching, and then I headed to Ginger Island for more starfruit harvesting and replanting. It's really a huge pain that I found ancient seeds so late in the run, because it'll be many weeks before I can start to plant them in any great number on the island. Oh, by the way, I bought the hopper recipe and set one of those up with the bone mill from Gunther. I really like this combo actually, though I do wish that I could set up another hopper below the mill to push the product into a chest. Before bed, I started setting up sprinklers back on the main farm as I'd resigned myself to using the quality versions for the time being. I actually continued with the sprinkler project on day 132 and got some strawberries in the ground as well to continue feeding into my dehydrators in the future. William and Linus came to visit Ginger Island after that, and Linus sang Leo the song of his people. I found some sick purple boots in the volcano mine, and I started earnestly working toward the full stack of fiber that I would need for a statue crafting recipe coming up. On day 133, I dropped off even more gifts for the raccoons, this time wild horseradish juice and pickled dandelions. This family is full of little freaks. They gave me 5 fairy dust for my efforts, which was pretty neat, and I got to see Shane's blue chickens today, which is awesome, except my coop is kind of full to bursting right now. Jody shared the most relatable dream I've ever heard today, and I continue to hand out more love gifts to anyone I could find, even Clint. William called me his beloved farmer, and even Krobus admitted I'm not like the other girls, so I think I'm starting to get really popular with my neighbors. Also, because I was so early with my wine last time, I was able to replace the entire shed's worth on a Sunday for once. And after that, I worked on the Ginger Island layout, ultimately passing out for the first time in a little while, and making almost 500,000 gold overnight. I had a little bit of cleanup work to do on day 134 since I'd missed some of the fertilizer and passed out before planting everything, but the field was finally starting to take shape. That meant I was okay to head back home and harvest the greenhouse's crop, replacing as much of it as I could with deluxe speed grow fertilized ancient seeds. Like I said, it's going to be a while before this can be my cash crop. I bought another 700 some starfruit seeds from Sandy for the meantime, and then I almost got tricked into some sort of weird pantomime show. Kind of also weird that my wife was dancing with another dude, but whatever. After that, I continued harvesting fiber and very narrowly avoided Clint's confession of love before watching the stars with Maru. All these gifts I've been giving have resulted in just non-stop cutscenes lately. And honestly, it was even more of the same on day 135, which was when I learned that all the spring onions I've eaten over the years were absolutely infested with mites or something. Gross. But the gift train could not stop since I really wanted to knock out friendship so I could focus on other things. I was excited to get to the point where I didn't have to waste so much time visiting with my neighbors and dropping off gifts, which is kind of depressing when I say it out loud. Like, I'm actively working toward a future where I'll have no interaction with another human other than transactional ones. I'll buy seeds from Pierre or crack geodes with Clint, but it's not like I'll be involved in their lives. Once I know my heart levels won't fall anymore, I'll just consider them a box checked off on my little list on my way toward perfection. Do they even matter to me? Does anything matter other than the relentless march toward perfection? Am I so far lost that I see relationships as a challenge to be overcome, merely a test where I stole the answer sheet, rather than an intimate connection whose very existence separates humanity from other mammals? On that note, I spent the rest of my day deforesting the land for my future keg needs. Day 136 was the flower dance, and it definitely came at the right time immediately after that brief existential crisis yesterday, but as always before the festival, we have to get some chores done. I'm not showing the animals most days because if you've played Stardew before ever, you probably know what that entails, but they're thriving down there, though they're primarily eating hay at this point instead of foraging for grass. Also, I had some mystic trees finish growing today, so I made sure to slap a heavy tapper onto one of those on my way to the flower dance. I was hoping the flower dance would rekindle my love for my fellow man, but the awkward silence really did nothing but give me anxiety, on what is essentially Stardew Valley's biggest stage. So that's cool. I headed down into Cindersap on day 137 and narrowly avoided Penny asking me how I felt about kids before I dropped off some maple syrup for my friends, the Prophecy Bear. After that, I gave Evelyn a leak for some sort of herbal medicine for George, watched Harvey do calisthenics, sold a plate of 2-week-old sashimi to Pierre, and then bought a price catalog from the bookseller. Pierre's birthday was tomorrow, and I was out of rabbit's feet after my Keys Kindness quest, but lots of people have loved books now, and this was one of his. After that, I finally caught a void salmon to complete the missing bundle and sent the last of the Junimos back to the Seven Hells, then snagged the bluegrass starter recipe over in the walnut room. I rounded out my night by hunting iron in the mines after that and smelting it in my heavy furnaces. These take 25 ore and 3 coal, but they give you either 5 or 6 bars of metal, which is really, really handy. I'm loving all the 1.6 editions, especially the mastery stuff like this. Day 138 was, like I said, Pierre's birthday, but I actually ended up finding an iridium quality rabbit's foot today, so my little plan with the price catalog was kind of a waste of money. On my way to drop off his birthday present, I kind of accidentally stumbled upon his secret stash, but I won't tell anyone, since soon I won't be talking to anyone anyway. I knocked out the mysterious Mr. Key quest today since I needed to get into the casino for the final scarecrow, and I also worked through a few of the many crafting recipes I hadn't yet completed back at home. For now, I stored a lot of the items, though I'll send them through the deconstructor later to get some of the ingredients back. One thing that I actually plan to use though is the mini obelisk pair. And I say that, but I continue to neglect my fish pond island on the daily for the next couple seasons. That night, Leah gave birth to a beautiful daughter. I named her Grandpa after the 2 bravest men I've ever known. Other than being a parent, day 139 started off pretty much the same as they all do, except today I had some mystic sap from my new tree. Very fun. I planted some fiber seeds for that crafting recipe I keep bringing up, gave Jazz a cake I'd found in my storage room, listened to Vincent struggle to understand his dad's PTSD, and then I gave him a second cake I'd found underneath the first one. I cooked some of the many recipes I still needed to complete today, and then I headed into the mines first, but also the new quarry section to gather more iron and coal for kegs and preserve stars. Day 140 was the final day of spring year 2, which meant I was going to be very busy. Not because of the changing of seasons or anything, but because I'd taken the Dangerous Skull Cavern quest earlier in the week, and today was the last day to complete it. Fortunately, I had literally 187 staircases after making a quick trade, so I wasn't too worried, despite my so-so luck. And honestly, there's not much to say about my descent today. I picked up a prismatic shard on floor 91, but I didn't find a single treasure floor until 100, which had a purple slime egg. Honestly, I just left after that. I mean, I got some decent resources out of it, but it was a pretty disappointing trip on the whole. Day 141 was the first day of summer, though. Summer in year 1 is when things start to really feel like they're popping off, at least for me. But summer in year 2 is practically the midway point. At least it is if you're doing a strict 100 days per 100 days video. I know a lot of people have moved toward like a full year, and I got some comments about that on my last video, but I kind of like the weird timeline and the pressure. What do you think about that? Should I just go straight through a whole year if I do another of these? Let me know. Anyway, as you might guess, my day was full of clearing the fields and planting new crops. Not necessarily because I need to grow cash crops, but there are things I still need for recipes, and also for the polyculture achievement, even though that's not really part of perfection. I did plant some starfruit at home, though, in my leftover spots, but the Riverland farm was never really built for extensive planting. That's what Ginger Island is for on this file. And speaking of that, I harvested and replanted a bunch of crops over there, and grabbed a deconstructor for all my crafted items I mentioned earlier. Also, since it was a wine day, I made a cool 570,000 gold overnight, which was, as I mentioned before, not on pace to meet my needs for perfection. I had picked up the 4 precious stones and Robin's project quests for this week, so I started the next day by gathering some hardwood before going through my normal chores. The raccoon wanted a gift for his missus, a diamond and 20 bat wings, okay. So I dropped those off and got a jungle tank as a reward. This thing is actually really cool looking, but we won't be using it for a while yet. I continued working on crafting recipes as well as a little bit of cooking today, but other than that and a little bit of gifting, I can't say that there's too much to talk about for day 142. Day 143 was another starfruit harvest day in the greenhouse, but instead of replanting the whole place with more starfruit, I actually planted a whole bunch of garlic. I had missed crafting the oil of garlic recipe in spring, so I really needed to get that fixed up before I forgot. And I also had a bunch of ancient fruit ready to plant today too. After that, it was over to Clint's to crack geodes, and I mean a lot of geodes. I actually found a prismatic shard, which was kinda neat, but you might have noticed that I'm not exactly hurting for those at this point. I also managed to snag the Esperite that I needed for the museum, so I switched over to mystery boxes at that point and got a smattering of somewhat useful stuff, including the Book of Mysteries. And speaking of books, I didn't mention this in the first 100 days, but I did snag the Alleyway Buffet book back in winter of year 1, so I'm starting to get close to having all of them. Day 144 was Jazz's birthday, which meant I dropped off a fairy rose with her, then handed out other gifts around the town and picked up an actual box of treasure from the Lewis Gotcha machine. I also traded in all my remaining Omni Geodes for artifact troves at this point, since I didn't need any more minerals for the museum, but I still had a few artifacts to go. I got a skeletal mask, an ancient sword, and a prehistoric hand axe from these, which was pretty cool, except that I had one of those axes at home that I'd kinda just forgotten about today, so it was really only like 2 out of the 24 that were useful, but still, I was getting closer every day. After that, I made my very first trip to the casino where I bought some coins before just leaving. Bad luck day and all that. But tomorrow looks to be a green rain day, so I think there's excitement on the horizon. Day 145 was in fact a green rain event, but since it had happened last year with no lasting issues, no one seemed to care about it this year. And honestly, I only cared about 2 things this year: fiber and moss. I haven't been the best about collecting moss from trees when I'm out and about, and even worse, I kinda cut down trees around town so often that they sometimes don't even have a chance to grow moss at all. So I was really looking forward to a feast today in preparation for crafting the Statue of Blessings, which requires 333 of the stuff. I did make sure to check in on Krobus this time since I hadn't met him by the last green rain, but honestly I spent the majority of my day cutting down weeds, collecting moss from trees, and cutting down other weeds. Even Demetrius seemed less enthusiastic this year, but maybe that was also just because I broke into his bedroom while his wife was asleep. It's tough to say. Because of all that moss yesterday, I was finally able to craft the Statue of Blessings on day 146. Similar to the statue of the Dwarf King, this will give me a buff every day. Unfortunately, I don't get to pick this one. I believe it's based on your world seed and the daily weather. That said, I'll make good use of this later in the run. Since it was a good luck day, I decided to head to the Skull Cavern today. I didn't bother loading up my slingshot though. Today was going to be relatively casual. It was mostly just a resource gathering day, and it felt like the game kind of knew that. I picked up 5 warp totems on floor 37 and a prismatic shard on floor 83, but other than that, and a couple hundred iridium ore, it was a pretty uneventful trip. Day 147 started with beans, coffee beans this time. The garlic I'd planted for crafting was also fully grown today, so I made sure to craft the oil of garlic after grabbing some ingredients from the kitchen. I also sold off a few fruit tree fruits that I've been collecting, without ever selling actually, for the collection today, and I was getting seriously close to the full shipment portion of perfection at this point. I continued with presents today, with only a handful of villagers left to reach max hearts, other than the refreshingly stoic grandpa, of course, and I played some slots today. Honestly though, it got a little tedious after a while, so I just bought the last 300 coins that I need to purchase my very last rare crow. Or so I thought. Day 148 started with a poppy harvest, which meant a poppy seed muffin for Leah. One more recipe off the list. After that, I replaced all the wine with coffee for now. I struggle so hard in mid to late game Stardew without speed boost, so it was important to get some of this brewing so I could make more triple shot espresso. So important, in fact, that I made a second trip through a few hours later, though I did eventually switch back over to wine in the afternoon. I went ahead and got the only other obelisk that matters today, the desert obelisk, and replenished my starfruit seeds, and I foolishly accepted the Keys crop quest from the walnut room. I really did not need 100 more gems at this point, and accepting this quest would turn out to be a huge problem for my summer plans. On day 149, I continued handing out gifts to the few villagers who don't adore me yet. I went ahead and grabbed Gus's omelet quest since that shouldn't be too hard to take care of, and then it was time to go on a bean hunt. That meant I spent a few hours cutting down trees and cinder sap, and then a few more blowing up rocks in the mines. I also turned in 4 coral and 3 magma geodes to the raccoons, and I think this is about when I should have gotten the achievement for that, but my Steam wasn't connected to Smappy for some reason, so I just didn't. But I did blow up the quarry and then start placing some flooring down over there, even though I don't really know what I'm going to do with the area yet. Day 150 was obviously halfway through my second 100 days on Smoke River Farm, and I was starting to get a little bit nervous. I started with a starfruit and red cabbage harvest, and used those cabbages to keep working on my recipe grind. Cooking used to be the last thing on my perfection checklist, just because you didn't actually get the last recipe until Winter 28 Year 2, right? But I think this time it's going to be the gold clock. I planted some key beans and had the perfect amount for this little garden area, and then I decided to put some mystic trees up in the quarry to eventually move my mushroom logs. Then it was off to Ginger Island to harvest and replant my starfruit, but also to add more iridium sprinklers. These won't all have great coverage, but I want to expand at least a little more over there, especially since I'll need a lot of planting space for more key beans. I always find it a little funny when Leah says that our house is so much nicer than her old cabin, because by day 151 it still looked like this. But decorating would have to wait, because like I said, I was getting seriously concerned about the 12 million-ish gold that I still needed. I ended up selling some bunnies today because I only have Alex, Dwarf, and Leo left to max friendship with, and I kind of just wanted to reduce the amount of time I spent on animal chores each day, but then it was time for the luau. Did you know that the wizard actually has dialogue despite the fact that you can't reach him without a mod? The same is true during Spirit's Eve, and I just think that's neat. I didn't realize that pumpkins were blacklisted from the luau, so I was very fortunate that I was carrying some stinky cheese in my back pocket, and it seemed like everyone really loved it. Still, it wasn't enough to max hearts with those 3 folks I mentioned before. I caught Alex stomping on seashells on the morning of day 152, though he did apologize for having such a messy room, so maybe he was just sleepwalking. After that, I decided it was time to get a little more proactive about making money, so I gathered up some supplies for a fishing trip at the Volcano Forge. I only stuck around long enough to catch one for today though, which I turned into bait, before gathering up a bunch of stuff from the island and bringing it home. Soon though, I'll be trying to do some actual fishing. The key fruit quest continued on the morning of day 153, and I was already regretting even taking this stupid quest, but... well, actually, there's no follow-up to that. I hate this quest. I gave Alex some cheese for his birthday, which maxed our hearts at 8. Very cool. Before heading to Ginger Island to do some fishing. I ended up with 9 lava eels today after fishing for a while and taking bait into consideration, but I also spent a few hours collecting more of the stupid key fruit seeds. Between the lava eels I had time to smoke and a little bit of roe, I made about 50,000 gold from fishing today. Not bad for about 5 hours of fishing, but lava eel fishing is not exactly what I would call exciting. That said, I would be fishing for lava eel again on day 154 because today my Statue of Blessings gave me the blessing of water, making the first 3 fish I hooked today significantly easier to catch. So much easier, in fact, that I crafted some challenge bait to take with me. With challenge bait, my chances to actually hook the lava eel was decreased significantly. Like seriously, it was pretty bad, but when I did hook them, I could easily reel them in perfectly, and that meant 3 iridium quality lava eels for every successful catch. Unfortunately, because of the low catch rate, I was only able to snag 2 rounds of challenge eels. Pretty neat though, and if I had the ingredients for more challenge bait, this might have worked out a little better. I gave in on day 155 and moved my 2 secondary sheds up to the main island of my farm and started an upgrade on the one that still needed it. It was time to face the music. If I wanted to build the gold clock, I needed to suck it up and embrace the keg life. So that's what I did. I spent most of my day cutting down trees around the valley, and I filled this second shed with kegs, though I'll have to rearrange a little when the upgrade is finished. I was a little frustrated that it had come to this, but since it wasn't a themed run of any kind, I guess maybe it's okay. Feel free to lay into me in the comments for giving into old habits, I guess. I had some key fruit to harvest and process into more seeds on the morning of day 156, so I made sure to get some of those down in the greenhouse and throw more in my backpack for later. I added a couple more processing machines to the primary shed today since I was sitting on a lot of truffles and I wasn't going to get through them all with just the one oil maker. I made a quick trip over to Calico Desert to collect more wood for the keg project and replenish my starfruit seeds while I was there. After that, I dropped off a bunch of eggs for my man Gus, and then it was off to Ginger Island to plant those extra key seeds. I didn't actually do any math on these this time around, so it was probably not very smart of me to skip the fertilizer for these ones, but it'll probably be fine. I saw that Mr. Key had the extended family quest for me again on day 157, but I had actually been waiting to get Danger in the Deep for quite a while now, so I had to go with that one instead. I spent a little while clearing out the dig site for more beans and hardwood mostly, and then I went ahead and knocked out the whole Dangerous Mines in one shot with staircases from home. It feels so naughty, but so powerful to just skip the entire place. I gathered a little bit of hardwood before getting slimed by a ghost, and then I headed to Ginger Island to plant some more beans, and this time I did fertilize them. I threw my baby in the air a bunch on day 158, though I didn't crit the baby throw. I actually didn't know what that looked like at this point, to be honest, but there's really not much to say about day 168. I added more key beans to Ginger Island, collected more iron and coal in the mines, and I picked up some hardwood from the secret woods, and I sold 88 iridium bars, leaving the same amount still in my chest. I did a lot with iridium in my last perfection farm, and I maybe should have been doing more Skull Cavern trips on this file, but it's a little late to say that while I'm writing the script. Day 159 was a starfruit harvest on the farm, and that meant I had a bunch of space open up for key fruit. It's kind of a waste to be planting so many beans when I was already stressed about making my money goals in the first place, but I went ahead and filled the farm up with them anyway, though I did plant ancient fruit in the greenhouse today too. I even dedicated a long strip of Ginger Island's planting zone to the beans today, and honestly that was pretty much all I was able to accomplish. Day 160 was a little better though. I started my morning off with a trip to the dangerous mines to pick up a couple magma geodes. I had smashed through most of my geodes while trying to fill up the museum earlier in the month, and the raccoon family was looking for a couple of them today. After that, I headed to Ginger Island to harvest, process, and replant more key fruit, and then I headed back to the dangerous mines to gather more hardwood from the iron floors. I honestly can't remember why I was so desperate for hardwood at the moment, so I guess you and I will find out together when I end up using it for something. How fun! Day 161 was a very good luck day and a Sunday, so I decided I would make a trip to the Skull Cavern. I grabbed my stack of staircases and my jade, and even decided at the last minute to get a magic rock candy too. I didn't bring my slingshot or bombs though, which was really stupid of me. It was a pretty decent trip even without the proper supplies though. I found a prismatic shard on floor 19, got disappointed by 5 golden mystery boxes on floor 23, found a white turban on floor 28, snagged 15 cinder shards on floor 50, and collected and tried out a rapid magic quiver on floor 62, though I eventually switched back to my wand. The quiver is kinda cool, but since it knocks enemies back, it's kinda hard for me to manage. I snagged another prismatic shard on floor 75, a third on 91, got another slime egg on floor 100, and found my 4th prismatic shard of the day on floor 114. I had taken the quest for these from the Walnut Room a while back, so this was pretty neat. I found shard number 5 on floor 131, and finally, on floor 133, I found my 6th prismatic shard of the dive and decided to just call it a day. I ended up with about 150,000 gold worth of iridium and 6 shards. Not bad. Day 162 was another key fruit day, and also ancient fruit and star fruit in the greenhouse. I prioritized getting more ancient fruit, and we're over halfway full of this stuff now, and I planted key beans everywhere else, including over on Ginger Island, where another big batch of this stuff had come in. I dropped off 4 of those prismatic shards at the Walnut Room today and picked up Pierre's missing stock list in case of any last-minute crop mistakes, though I would hopefully never need it. I forgot about the book that lets me buy from Marnie when she's gone, so I cut down some grass around Grandpa's shrine today to try and feed my animals for at least one more day, and then I realized it was a wine day. I gathered up 202 bottles of the stuff and then started rearranging and placing more kegs in the second wine shed. I actually passed out in here before I was able to fill all my kegs, but I was starting to feel a little more optimistic about my finances now. Apparently, Marlin broke into my shed last night, since he found me there during his 3 a.m. sweep of the valley. Very interesting, Marlin. I moved my mushroom logs to the quarry today, since I wanted to eventually fill that up with logs and mystic trees. And there we go. That is what I was getting hardwood for. Mushroom logs and mystic tree seeds require hardwood and mahogany seeds, respectively. The mystery is solved. And I actually continued with that gathering today, though I had to make a stop at Ginger Island to do more bean work. I had only sold 173 key fruit by day 164, so I was actually getting a little concerned about meeting my goal. Like I said, I hadn't done any math on this, so I was just going by my gut feeling. I finally gave up today and fished up everything from my fish ponds on the bottom left island. And you might be thinking, I didn't even know you had a fish pond island, and I wouldn't blame you for that because I just never went down there. Once they were empty, I had Robin demolish them, and then I messed around with the barn and coop for a long time before eventually deciding to put them both down there. It's a little crowded, but I've sold off a few animals already, so I think it'll be fine. I also started another shed while I was here, and this one will have preserve jars eventually. After that, I cleared up the large central island a little today, and then I spent a long time planting a little forest at the spa because those preserves jars are not going to build themselves. On day 165, I replaced all the key fruit on my farm with coffee beans. These won't grow before summer ends, but they'll maintain the tilled soil for me into fall, and that's really all I needed. I spent most of my day after that working on the wood situation. I continued planting trees up the spa and cut down trees at Calico Desert and in Cindersap Forest. That took me most of the day, but I did make sure to harvest the key fruit from Ginger Island to sell that today as well. And before bed, I started placing some sprinklers on the central island at home. If I'm being honest, I should have done this a long time ago, but it's better late than never. Hopefully, it just wasn't too late. I moved my lightning rods to the new Animal Island on day 166 and nearly got struck by lightning myself in the process. Then I tilled out the entire central field, figured out some scarecrow placement, and filled it all in with coffee beans. Oh, and speaking of scarecrows, I still hadn't gotten the deluxe scarecrow recipe in the mail. I realized today that I didn't have the dwarf rare crow, so I went and bought one. Anyway, I probably should have just waited until fall to actually plant stuff, but I wasn't really doing anything else today, so it worked out to just get the placeholder plants in the ground early. I sold the last key fruit I needed to complete that quest today too, so I'll have a whole bunch of gems waiting for me tomorrow. I did in fact get the deluxe scarecrow recipe on day 167. And after my normal chores, I decided to make another trip to the Skull Cavern today. It was a mostly uneventful trip, though I found a seed maker in a chest on floor 56 and 4 quality sprinklers on floor 100. Great. Floor 114 had a red slime egg for me, and I managed to pick up another 5 prismatic shards today, but none of that really mattered because what I really needed were artifact troves. I only had 1 item left to donate to the museum at this point, and now that the key beans were done, it was time to buckle down and find it. Kinda silly that I just have 12 prismatic shards at home in a chest though, because I can't buy magic rock candy quickly enough to go through them all. Day 168 was the final day of summer, and it was a starfruit day on Ginger Island. I actually had to make a special trip to the desert for more seeds today, and I got really excited to see this panning spot, but it only had 8 copper. My first round of mushrooms at the quarry came in today, and looking back, this was probably not the greatest project I've ever devised, but oh well. And speaking of doomed projects, I started filling my new shed with preserves jars today. I cracked open my 22 artifact troves today as well, and found this book that makes selling artifacts actually worth it. But also, the chipped amphora. That meant I could finish the museum and grab my very last star drop. That's one more thing off my list. And after that, it was time for my favorite festival, the Dance of the Moonlight Jellies. I had the opportunity to go to the Festival of Seasons Symphony between my first and second 100 days on this farm, and Dani and I got to meet Concerned Ape, who recognized the channel and signed an excerpt of the Moonlight Jellies sheet music for me. This game has been so important for so much of my life, and this festival never fails to tug at my heart a little bit, even more so after that experience. But as the curtain fell on that festival, it was time to say goodbye to summer and move on to a new season. Day 169 was fall first, which meant I needed to clean the farm of all the dead coffee beans to make way for the new season's crops. I went ahead and bought a few stacks of wood today for the Preserves Jars project, and then I planted a little bit of everything in my front garden area. Just like summer, I'm not using this for my main money makers, it's more for ingredients and achievements. That said, I did plant a couple hundred pumpkins at home as well, and those really will be money makers. It was also a wine day, so I made sure to run through my 2 sheds, with my second one being just about full now. I placed down a little fencing in my front yard before bed and raked in over 800,000 gold that night. Neat. I needed a couple of fall fish for cooking recipes, so I started day 170 down by the river hunting salmon, then moved on to the ocean for a sea cucumber. I needed these for salmon dinner and lucky lunch, and other than those, I just needed artichokes mostly to wrap up my cooking list. I added a few more dehydrators to my main shed today and filled all but 2 spaces of the preserves jar shed. It was actually coal that I ran out of, so I went to the mines to get more of that, and I switched the mines back to their standard version while I was there. I went ahead and crafted a few more oil makers while I was at it, so I could hopefully get through my mountain of truffles once and for all. Day 171 was a preserves jar day, and I replaced everything with pumpkins for now. The raccoons wanted 5 mussels and a smoked salmon, so I went ahead and pulled one of those out of the river, smoked it, and pulled 5 of my 82 mussels out of the shed and handed them off. I still hadn't gotten the achievement for the raccoon family, by the way. I accidentally bought some enrichers while visiting the walnut room to pick up the Junimo chess set, so I just put them on my sprinklers outside the house and never looked at them again. I didn't really have much to do after that, so I just fished up some catfish and smoked them for some extra cash. I picked up the tropical fish quest from William on day 172 and spent most of my day on that project. I was in hurry up and wait mode at this point, so spending a day working on a quest wasn't gonna hurt me. Plus, it meant more fish for me to smoke, and stingrays are actually worth some decent money. I also cooked up some seafoam pudding today to go fishing for more lava eels soon, and maybe even some extended family fishing if that popped up. I started my day off on 173 with my normal chores around the farm. With 17 dehydrators now, I was switching between starfruit and other products every day, so today I had morels. It was a decent luck day, and I didn't have a lot to do, so I checked my dwarf statue and statue of blessings to decide if I would go fish or go to the skull cavern. I had the blessing of water today, so it was off to the volcano. I stopped by the walnut room to buy more challenge bait, but you can't actually buy challenge bait, so I had to go back home and craft more. Then I fished up 9 iridium quality lava eels and started processing both them and the trash I'd found while searching for them. After taking bait making into consideration, I came away with 29 lava eels today. I smoked and sold 25 of them and made about 150,000 gold from them. That's not too shabby. I was already making about 1.5 million per week between the kegs and preserves jars, so this could be a nice little jump. Day 174 was a pickle day again, but more importantly, it was also another Blessing of the Waters day. These don't happen super often, and I'm not sure if I've actually seen them back to back before, but I was already in the fishing zone, so it worked out well. I actually messed up on one of my casts, so I only got 8 from my blessing, but that's still pretty cool. I stuck around a bit longer and left after catching 14 eels to gather more coal. I was dangerously low on the stuff, and I couldn't smoke more fish or build more preserves jars without it, so I spent some time in the quarry and mines before bed. That night, my nemesis showed up. There are very few times I'm happy to see the crop fairy, and the beginning of my second fall is not one of those times. I hate you so much, crop fairy. I didn't get the three-peat for Blessing of the Waters on day 175, so I started by gathering some coal today, then started an upgrade on my pickle shed. I rode right past the stupid pumpkins that were ready for harvest on my way to Cindersap to look for blackberries. I had somehow used all of mine up and I needed to make cobblers still. I found them easily enough, and I spent most of the rest of my day trying to fish for super cucumbers with limited success despite my targeted bait. I feel like that went pretty well for me last year, but this time it was not so great. Day 176 was a wine day though, so that is actually pretty great. I was able to almost fill up my second shed with kegs, leaving only 4 spaces unfilled, so this is about the peak of what I can expect now. Today was also a great luck day, and I got the +1 ore buff from the statue of the Dwarf King, so I headed to the Skull Cavern to hunt for iridium. This time I actually had the equipment for it too, so I was cautiously optimistic for a really good day. I found a treasure floor on 21 with 5 golden mystery boxes, another on 27 with 10 cinder shards, a third on floor 44 with some seafoam pudding, and a fourth on floor 52 with 10 omni geodes. Honestly, other than the pudding, it was kind of a bust so far. My next treasure floor at 60 was cactus seeds, so I had basically given up on hope for like an auto petter or anything by this point. On floor 80, I found 5 Omni Geodes. On 82, I got a purple slime egg, and on 90, I found 5 artifact troves. That's kinda cool, I guess. My freebie on 100 was farm warp totems, and on 120, I found an apple sapling that I just threw away for lack of space. I picked up my first prismatic shard on floor 129, a second on 132, and a third on 134. Number 4 came on floor 138, and I made it to 155 before taking off for the night. I definitely wouldn't say it was a bad day, with over 500 iridium and those shards, plus like 18 diamonds and some other goodies, but when I passed out mere feet away from my bed, with Leah actually saying goodnight to me, it just felt like the perfect cap to a somewhat lackluster Skull Cavern day. I made almost 1 million gold that day though, so that's neat. My artichokes came in on day 177, so I cooked up a super meal and some artichoke dip. But I actually still needed glazed yams. Shoot. It was Starfruit Harvest Day on Ginger Island, and I came away one shy of 700 fruits today. That's about 2.2 million gold worth of wine, so one more harvest of that size was probably all I needed to make it to my goal. That said, I planted some of my ancient fruit seeds over there today too, since if I do keep playing past 200 days, these will be way less annoying to have to replant all the time. Then, at the Walnut Room, I saw the Extended Family Quest. I had started this second 100 days with the Legend 2 fishing, but I was way more prepared for a serious fishing run at this point. I didn't grab it quite yet because I wanted to start on a luckier day, if possible, but I was very excited to see it there. On my way to trade Mystic Syrup for Fairy Dust, I saw that my crop fairy pumpkins had actually somehow turned into a huge pumpkin with some of the crops that weren't fully grown yet. I didn't actually know that could happen, so that was pretty cool. But then I grabbed my fairy dust and sprinkled it over some of the casks that were a little behind the rest of the bunch that I'd harvested earlier in the day. Another 400,000 gold tonight had me feeling pretty good about my trajectory. Day 178 was an excellent luck day, so you can probably guess that I ran over to Ginger Island pretty much right away in the morning. I picked up the Extended Family Quest, gathered up my supplies from the volcano, and headed to the mountain lake. And yeah, I fished for Legend 2s. With Key Season Seafoam Pudding, they're definitely not impossible to catch, but I still used both a Curiosity Lure and a Trap Bobber to help me hook and then hang on to them. So, by the end of the day, I left with 12 gold quality Legend 2s, though I had also caught a couple and turned them into bait. That was about 380,000 gold worth of fishing, and I still had 2 more days to do the exact same thing. Before doing the exact same thing on day 179, though, I had to refill my jars in my upgraded shed. I didn't have enough materials to fill the whole thing up, though, and honestly, that was a problem for later anyway. I spent the rest of my day after that, you guessed it, fishing at the mountain lake. I lost my first Legend 2 today when my last dish of seafoam pudding ran out and I got a little bit too cocky. But I had backup fishing food, seasoned lobster bisque in this case, so the battle continued on. I love seafoam pudding, but I kind of like lobster bisque more because it lasts for so long. One thing that happened today that I thought was really cool was that I got a perfect catch Legend 2 with a treasure chest. That's worth over 1,340 experience if I did my math right, which would bring you from level 0 to level 4 fishing in one go. Pretty wild. Today's status report: 12 more gold and 1 Iridium Legend 2 in my pocket at bedtime. Sorry, Leah. Day 180 was a yam day, which meant that I got the gourmet chef achievement and completed that portion of perfection. That's like 44 days earlier than I could before. Excellent news. The bad news is that I was running out of fishing food. Remember when I had fish ponds with squid and midnight carp? Well, those are gone. So I ran to Ginger Island to get more seasoning and made some seasoned escargot with what I had at home. Only +3 compared to 4 from the bisque yesterday and 5 from the pudding the day before, but I had to make do. And you know what? I think I did pretty alright. I used up the rest of my bait today, but since I knew I probably wouldn't be doing more legend fishing, I switched to wild bait in the evening. This ended up working out okay for me. I managed to pull in 2 legend 2s only once at the end of the night, but I was pretty happy with my final tally. 39 gold legend 2s and 1 iridium quality. I was very excited to start smoking them. So that's what I did on day 181. Also, I somehow got a second giant pumpkin from my crop fairy visit, so I think I'm gonna have to give her a pass on this one. Thanks. Ugh, crop fairy. I spent a lot of my day on the farm today processing ancient fruit into seeds, smoking all my fish, and moving ingredients out of the fridge now that I'd cooked everything. It was a nice change of pace from the last couple of days, that is for sure. Before bed today, I placed down the 2 obelisks I was still waiting for. Those smoked legend 2s, by the way, 1.2 million gold. Including that money, I'd made about 16.3 million on this farm so far, so that means I made about 9% of my total earnings from the 2 extended family quests that I'd taken on this file. I don't think fishing was ever going to replace farming as a primary moneymaker in this game, but it sure has gotten a lot stronger with the fish smoker in 1.6. Day 182 was a pumpkin day, so I harvested and replanted my fields with a quick stopover at Pierre's to buy more seeds. I thought about leaving the giant crops, but ultimately decided to cut them down as well. After that, I went on another blackberry hunt, this time for the raccoons, and then reorganized the pickle shed before heading to the quarry to collect more coal for even more preserves jars. Again, a pretty relaxing day compared to the madness of Legend 2 fishing, though I did barely remember to make it to the oasis for staircases today. Day 183 was a Monday, and that meant wine, and both my sheds were pretty much full at this point. I collected 269 bottles of wine worth about 850,000 gold. And yeah, that's why fishing, while enormously buffed in 1.6, just cannot compete with farming. The problem is scaling. But anyway, I did my final check-in on my perfection score today just to make sure that I was where I thought I was, so I didn't accidentally embarrass myself on the very last day of the video, and yes, all that's left is the golden clock. That means I have 16 days to make about 1.5 million gold when you account for today's wine. Even if I did nothing between now and then except stock my kegs, I would still make it. And honestly, that kind of rocked me for a second. I had pushed so hard to get here, and my plans were gonna come to fruition. But what was I gonna do in the meantime? I mean, I could probably just sell everything in my chest at home and make that extra 1.5 million gold. Yoba knows I have enough junk in all my trunks. It was kind of another existential moment for me, and it took me a second to realize something that I kind of forget sometimes in the pursuit of making these videos. I really enjoy challenging myself like this, like how quickly can I reach perfection or whatever, you know? I really enjoy having a clear and actionable goal. But there are a lot of other ways to have fun in Stardew Valley. It sounds kind of silly when I say it out loud, but I realized that I could just spend the next couple of weeks in the game just having fun. I'd accomplished everything I needed to. I could just chill. Like I said, kind of a dumb thing to say, but it was a refreshing feeling. I started my fun time by picking out my items for the Grange display tomorrow, then I placed down some brick flooring in my obelisk and eventual golden clock area. Then I headed to the quarry to clean up, and into the quarry mines for more coal, in case I wanted to craft more preserves jars. But not because I needed to. I just felt like it. Day 184 was the Stardew Valley Fair, and I made sure to check out the changes to the town in the Year 2 version of the layout. The barbecue area was moved apparently, and there were animals up on the hill instead. I still utterly trounced the competition with my amazing Grange display, but today I didn't bother betting for more star tokens. Instead, I took my winnings and bought a prize ticket for Lewis's machine, then went home and called it a night early. I did have plans for these next few days, but there wasn't much I could do tonight. That night, a strange sound was heard. I found out what it was on day 185 when I was doing my morning chores. The strange capsule had appeared right next to my obelisks. I know this thing isn't as rare as it used to be, but that was still pretty cool, and it gave me an idea. I stopped by Robin's to grab the furniture catalog, and I had her start a little project for me. Then I headed home and fenced off this new little area for my secret plans. Also, I decorated. I grabbed all the items from the museum and put them up in the attic of the house. I wanted it to look like the kind of storage room that no one really wants to go into, and you're pretty sure it's haunted too. I also spent like 20 minutes of my real life looking at wallpaper and flooring, which is just wild to me. This place, though, is going to be fabulous. Day 186 was a starfruit harvest day, and I replaced nearly 200 spots with more ancient fruit seeds, even though they wouldn't even grow by the time I reached 200 days. Who knows, maybe I'd be back. After my chores, I continued decorating, starting with the exterior of my farm. I put down some crystal flooring in the containment zone and then started lighting up the whole farm with all the torches I'd gathered from the recycling machine. Inside the house, I mostly focused on the room right off the stairs on the second floor. I turned it into an aquarium room with those porthole windows and some seating for now. I also put a dresser in the bedroom and moved all of my clothes up there from the one on the main floor. There's still a lot to do though. On day 187, Robin was done with her construction and Marlin was here. I built a little slime dungeon area thing since the slime hutch is only 7x4 now. It fits a lot better into any layout in my opinion. And that also meant I could complete my decorations. I added the alien rarecrow and strange capsule, and then I placed some lighting and lightning rods in the area to be like a makeshift power station or something. I don't know, I'm just going on vibes, okay? Speaking of vibes, I finally filled the flower island with sunflowers and more bee houses today. I really like doing a little spot like this, but I'd kind of neglected it for basically the entire game. I also popped into the sheds for a second and slapped down some new wallpaper and flooring. No theme or anything, I just thought it was cool. After that, it was back to the house to decorate. I focused on Grandpa's room and the basement today. Grandpa's room got the forest child treatment, of course, I pretty much always do that, and the basement turned into kind of a family room with a TV and a little game table to play with kids. Pretty cute. I had more pickles ready on day 188, which is fine, but we're all here for the decorating now, right? Right? I was really unsure of how I wanted to do the kitchen/dining room area, and I thought maybe closing that part back up would work better. Except I put a barrel in the way, so I had to trudge all the way home to move that one tile over before Robin would let me do anything. I also bought 25 seasonal plants for some reason. I don't think these will all get used. I reworked the basement a little bit after that, adding some end tables and smaller decorations along with some carpet. I don't know. It just felt right. There's actually a little left to do down here, but it's pretty good so far. Then it was time to do the kitchen, which I made into a little nook kind of thing. And the dining room, which is like a formal dining with a china hutch and a little bar. Listen, I'm not a pro decorator by any means, but I think this place is coming together. It's at least much better than it was a few days ago. That is for sure. The decorating continued on day 189 when I started to really pull my hair out trying to figure out what to do in this main room. I ended up using a bunch of stuff from the retro catalog and the little nook that used to have the bed. It turned into like a cozy book nook vibe, and I'm mostly happy with that, I think. But the rest of the room was a challenge. Since winter was coming up, and because it's just easy and fills space, don't tell anyone, I grabbed a Feast of the Winter Star tree and backlit it with a torch. I put some little cushions around it here, like we were going to sit down and open our presents or something. I thought it was kind of cute. And then, even though I already had a TV room, which now has the farm computer and jukebox, by the way, I added another TV and some seating upstairs, along with the phone and the calendar and another bookcase. I'm not sure I love it, but it seemed like something my family would have had. And then just the bedroom was left. I tried to kind of close off the top portion a bit more and make the bottom more like a dressing room or a sitting room or something. I'm not really sure it came out the way I wanted. I think out of all the rooms, the main living and master bedroom are the ones that I'm least confident in. Day 190 was a wine day, which is really important, of course, but I also wanted to check the Walnut Room quest and the bulletin board. Neither were great. I did pick up a hat and aquarium from the Walnut Room, but the aquarium ended up not really fitting with the space, which is a huge bummer since it's the only one with enough room for all the legendaries in it. But the day was pretty slow otherwise, and I ended it by putting the catalogs in Leah's spouse room. Sorry, Leah. I made just under 900,000 gold that day though, putting me within 100,000 of my 10 million goal. Day 191 was a very good luck day, so I figured what the heck, why not go for a Skull Cavern run? Who knows, maybe I'll actually get something good today instead of 10 treasure floors full of garbage. Today, the treasure floor started on floor 10 with a crystallarium, okay. Then a red cowboy hat on 13, okay. I found 2 life elixirs on 22 and a golden animal cracker on 54. That's pretty decent, 50% good stuff so far, I'd say. The day popped off on floor 86 though. 191 days into the game, I found my very first auto petter. Let's go! I mean, it's not that useful anymore, but still, good find. I didn't get another treasure floor until 100, but that one had a second auto petter. That's pretty amazing. I want to say that's like a 0.13% chance to occur, so yeah, I was jazzed. Honestly, I just straight up left after that. It's possible that I could have found something else really cool, but I will remind you, I'm just messing around at this point, and that was a really cool trip through the Skull Cavern. So, I headed back home, restocked all my pickles, and stopped by the quarry mines for more coal. And I organized my main shed a little bit more. I even broke the 10 million gold threshold overnight. What a great day. I was really not sure what I was going to do on day 192. I really felt like I had accomplished everything I needed to, and I was even more sure of that when I got the Good Neighbors achievement for no reason at all upon entering Cindersap Forest today. I cleaned up the dig site a little bit and considered doing some panning, but since I didn't have Poxseal with me, it wasn't as fun as I was hoping, and I only had a couple spots pop up with nothing of real consequence. Kind of a bummer, but maybe it's just because I didn't do the intro. On day 193, I found out you can steal Pam's sign, the one she puts up when she's going to Ginger Island, and you have to drive the bus yourself. And you can put it in the deconstructor for wood. That's just silly. I traded in some prismatic shards for a candy today, though I forgot you can only get one per week, and then I headed over to Robin's to go ahead and buy the house upgrade for Pam and Penny. I still felt kind of guilty for naming one of my pigs Penny back in the day, and I knew I'd have enough money coming in soon that I wasn't worried about dipping back below 10 million. I also decided to crack open some geodes, artifact troves, and mystery boxes over at Clint's. I wasn't really looking for anything specific, and I wouldn't say I got anything really exciting out of it, but it's kind of fun to see what's in the boxes, since I don't really know them very well yet. On day 194, I finally got to see the raccoon family cutscene in Cindersap. And I'm sure it's really cute, but just like everything else, it's kind of awkward without music. It kind of seems like the family is singing something, but I couldn't hear them. Still, I really like these little pals, so I'm glad they're happy here. I decided to try my hand at panning again today, but once again, there really wasn't anything worth mentioning. So I just collected even more wood on Ginger Island and headed back home to call it a night a little earlier than normal. I also made sure to tuck in Grandpa nice and snug tonight. Pretty much everything in my fields was fully grown on day 195, but I figured I'd give them one more day, just in case the pumpkins became big. And some of them had actually already fused, or whatever. I went ahead and restocked all the preserves jars today, then harvested everything at the quarry and cleaned it up. Then it was time for the Spirits Eve Festival. Year 2 meant a new maze for the festival, which was really cool. And I made sure to visit Linus and the wizard with no clip. I guess the wizard is looking for an apprentice. That could be a fun quest. But Leah told me she probably had too much pumpkin ale before jumping into the maze, and our daughter Grandpa is with her, so I'm a little worried they're gonna get lost or something. Not so worried that I didn't just finish up the maze myself, but you know, a little bit. Adding a second version of the festivals really makes coming back in year 2 a lot more fun, so I'm really happy to see these here. Since day 196 was the final day of fall, I went ahead and harvested all my crops today, though I left the giant pumpkin this time. I stopped into town and saw the cutscene with Pam and Penny's new house, and I picked the option to tell them it was me for possibly the first time ever. I really don't think I've done that before. I considered telling Pam that she needed to treat Penny better, but then I remembered that I left my child alone in the maze with my drunk wife yesterday, and I realized that I didn't really have a leg to stand on. So yeah, it's a gift. No repayment needed. With all that done, I spent the last day of fall just cutting down some trees and collecting more coal in the quarry mine. And then, it was time for winter. Day 197 was the first day of my second winter. I mentioned earlier that I kind of like the weirdness that comes with playing 100 days instead of a full 112-day year, but it's still kind of strange that I'm starting a new month when I was essentially done with the entire game. But I had a few days left, so I stopped over at Ginger Island for my final starfruit harvest and replaced the whole field with ancient fruit. It was also a Monday again, which meant more wine, and even though I was already over the 10 million mark, I still went ahead and harvested everything and started another batch, just in case. On day 198, I crafted and planted as many winter seeds as I could, just to have something in the field to make it look a little better. I pickled some more pumpkins today, then headed to the desert to pick up the Statue of Endless Fortune, since I knew I would break the 10 million gold threshold again, even though this purchase would dip me under for a day. I made use of my mini forge at home for the first time to upgrade my pickaxe a couple of times, but ran out of cinder shards, so I made a quick stop at the volcano to get more. That let me try a couple more times, and I got the powerful enchantment on my pickaxe, which is what I was looking for. I also got shaving on my axe, which I suppose is probably the best one I could ask for right now, so yeah, pretty cool. Day 199 was Linus's birthday, which the statue reminded me of with a little coconut. That's one of the reasons I like that statue, to be honest. It was also the day I needed to buy the gold clock if I wanted to visit the summit tomorrow. So yeah, I did. Then I visited Linus and gave him a coconut, and I didn't actually realize this until I started writing the script, but check this out. I put out his campfire on his birthday. That is so sad. I didn't have too much else to do, so I headed home and just processed more of my artisan goods to sell since I had less than 100,000 gold left after buying the golden clock. And then, it was finally time. Day 200 was here, and I got the perfection message on the bottom left corner of my screen. I visited with my family, and then headed outside to see the rare winter perfection parrots flying past my home. Then it was up to the summit. And it was a black screen again! Oh my gosh, that's so frustrating! Well, either way, I got to visit with Leah for a moment, and then watch the credits. Grandpa and Mr. Key told me how proud they were of everything that I'd accomplished. Then I went home to sleep and save, and I shut down the game. I always have a hard time with ending my games. It's like getting to the end of a book series you really love and realizing that it's about to be over and you won't hear any more stories about those characters. I hope I was able to show you part of my world, even if it was just for a little bit. If you think there's more to this story, let me know in the comments what I missed, and maybe we'll pick things back up in the future. For now, though, thank you to my YouTube and Patreon members for your continued support. That support helps me keep making videos like these, even when they take a little longer than expected. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.